All right, guys, I think we are live. Just checking through the chat here. Some of you have started a little bit early. Cool. So I'm going to jump in with the questions. We got quite a lot of questions here tonight. First, let's start with the announcements, actually. So someone asked me the other day if I got my YouTube plaque yet, because I mentioned that. It has finally arrived for 100,000 subs. I've really resisted opening this because I wanted to open it on this Q&A. So let's get this open. The ironic thing is this is for 100,000 and I'm about to hit probably 200,000 anytime. So let's have a look. This is what it looks like. I've never seen one of these myself, actually. You've got a bit of foam here. And then we've got a certificate. And there we go. Can you see that all right? So that's what it looks like. Am I going to be displaying this? Probably not. I haven't really got anywhere to display it. I've got so many things already on my walls and stuff. Probably not going to display that, but it's good to have. Pretty cool to have that. So just going to have a look at some of your messages coming in. Yeah, good. All right. Next one then. So as always for the Q&A session, these monthly sessions, I do this once a month, usually at the start of the month. So all the questions that come in, so I've got them here. These are from Patreon. So this is tier 2 of Patreon, because I know some people are tier 1, which is access to the full investment community, which honestly, if you're not on it, I don't know why you're not on it. It's only going to cost you a few dollars a month or $1 a week, and you'll get access to all of the investment community. I mean, this is a gold mine. This is the sort of thing I spent 10 years trying to find a forum, a community like this. So that's why I've created that. So definitely go and check that out. But for these questions, this is tier 2. So it's not the tier 1, which is just the forum. This is the tier 2. So you get your question guaranteed to be answered. So that is that. And then the last announcement, and I'm going to start the questions. A lot of people have been asking me, and there's a couple of questions tonight actually, about my property real estate companies, because I've got a few of them, and what's actually happened to them, because I haven't mentioned them on videos. Are they still going? Have they collapsed and all this sort of thing? So no, they haven't. There isn't really any problems with them. They're all going really strongly. But yes, there are some difficulties, just like everyone's having difficulties with lockdowns and COVID and everything. So I'll mention that later because there's a couple of questions on that. But for those of you that don't know, I've got a training academy. It's called the Property Cash Flow Academy. I don't think you'll find better property training courses anywhere. There's people from all around the world that are in the academy that take the courses. However, let me add the caveat. I did design them for the UK market. So that is the caveat. We have got Americans on there, Canadians, Australians, and everyone else, Europeans, but it is designed for the UK market. So the reason I've done that this month, what we've actually done, just so that anyone can access that academy, because the courses aren't cheap. What I've had my team do is make 2 hours of every single course completely free. So you can go on there and you can watch any of those courses completely free the first 2 hours. You don't get all the legal documentation, but you can watch them free. So that is my gift to you. I hope you enjoy that. There's also webinars. They're a couple of hours each. So you can easily get 4 hours or more of each sort of my trainings for free. So you're talking 12 hours or more there. All right, good. So that is the announcements. We are going to go straight into the questions now. And if you ever want your question answered on this, yes, I will jump in. I'll go to the chat and have a look at some of the questions. But if you want your question answered, you need to ask it through tier 2 of Patreon. Okay. So then what I've done, I've bunched up some of these questions together because this is quite an unusual set of questions, actually. And it tells me a lot about people's thinking in the marketplace as to where we are right now. It isn't, the usual sort of, general questions. These are very, very specific, and they tell a story actually about the mindset of the investment world. So I'm going to start with these ones, which are pretty much all the same, which has never happened before. So Maurice M. I read one of your older posts, which answers a lot of my questions regarding where to put all of our cash. Currently, over 60% of my net worth is in cash sitting in a bank. Originally, I was preparing to buy real estate. After watching your videos, it makes me rethink that. So now I can't buy stocks. I can't buy real estate. So what do I put my cash in? And my fear is that with inflation ramping up, my cash is being eaten away. And that's a good question, because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of you online right now who have that exact same question. So firstly, again, I look at linguistics. I look at the language that people use. So you've said here, Maurice, 60% of my total worth is in cash sitting in a bank, not banks. So that's the first problem here, I would say. I don't know how much money you've got, but if you've got, say, more than 100,000, you don't want to have that in one single bank account. No way. You need to have that spread out throughout different banks. And again, I've got clients, you guys know this, but I have lots of different mentoring clients. And I have a couple of clients last week who said that they had money or cash, whatever you want to say, in one bank, but it was in different accounts. That is not diversified. So let's say that you're with JP Morgan, which is, by the way, the riskiest bank in the world right now, according to SD Bullion. They're the only one that has a level 1 risk of collapse out of all the banks anywhere. So just something to take note of there. So let's say you're with JP Morgan and you had 5 accounts because you've got 100,000 in each one. And you're like, right, this is safe. I'm diversified here. I've got protection. Well, number one, you haven't got protection. Because these programs, these insurance programs that are designed to stop runs on banks, which is what it is, they're not even funded. They're like 1 or 2% funded. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So if a bank collapses and you've got 5 accounts and you think you're protected, no, you're not protected. That's why I have multiple banks, and I mean a lot of different banks, and I have different accounts within the banks, but I know those accounts aren't safe. I know it's just like that bank. And then I have different currencies. So I have different savings in different places. So I've got, I've got a couple of PayPal accounts as well, which have emergency funds in their different currencies, have different bank accounts in different places, right? So that is one thing around diversification there. So the next thing is you want to be diversified in terms of cash, like I mentioned, metals. So many people now, even though I keep giving this advice, have no metal whatsoever. And like this here. Okay, some of you notice I have it on my bookshelf and things like that. That is silver eagles. So they're silver eagles. Metals have always maintained value over thousands of years. So if there's ever a collapse or anything like that, at least you have that safety and that security. My wife actually gave me this, which was quite interesting. So she went to, I don't know where it was, Washington or somewhere a little while ago. And this says, this package contains shreddings of $150. So I got a $20 bill here, right? This $20 bill, this is how it all ends up in the end. This is not worth anything. This is just paper. It is a fiat currency, has no backing. And sometimes people try and correct me and they say, oh, I'm going to catch Neil out here. It has the backing of the US military. No, it still doesn't have backing. Gold is backing, all right? Gold standard, 1971. In fact, there's a book right there of Nixon who took the USA off the gold standard, right? That is real money, it's gold. So make sure you have a little bit of metal, so silver and gold. You've got to have a little bit. Next then is a house. If you don't own your own house, but you've got money and you've got funds and you're not sure what to do with it, it could be worth you looking at that. Now, is right now the best time to buy a house? Not yet. Not quite yet. You need to wait a little bit of time. I still think we are 3, 4, 5 months off a really good buying opportunity. And again, that depends on the country you're in. And people say, oh, Neil, you were wrong about this country. You were wrong about this. And I'm like, dude, watch the video all the way through. You're talking about something that I said at the start, which I then explained at the end of the video. right? So you've got to make sure you watch my videos all the way through and make sure it's all in context, because actually the predictions I've made so far, I haven't been, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I haven't been wrong on any prediction in the last year and a half, 2 years. They've all come to pass. And you can drop it in the comments, anyone that bought metals or followed any of my predictions on the London market, the Essex market a couple of years ago, happened exactly as I said it would. So I'm not saying that, you know, I'm Nostradamus here and I can tell the future, but I do think the predictions I've made so far are pretty strong, and I do think that they are going to come about roughly how I say. So you know, without, I don't want to come across like I'm bragging or anything, but yeah. Next thing then. So in terms of house, I would, if you've got a house and you've got debt on it and it's, you know, a few percent and you're getting zero in the bank, maybe think about putting that money to the house, pay down your debt a little bit, just give you that safety buffer. And then another thing is, you know, what I'm seeing a lot of at the moment, and I have a couple of clients who I mentor, and they are, how can I say, they are big in the food industry. So supermarket clients, big directors at high level supermarkets. And they tell me a lot of stuff that's quite concerning about food supplies and the chains that have broken down and how they can't keep up with trying to maintain these food chains. This isn't happening yet. We're not seeing collapses, but in some countries, you could see this happening. Just look at Venezuela. If any of you want to see an example of this, a really rich and wealthy country that now can't even feed people. People are starving in some countries. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm sure someone will drop it in the comments if you're in Venezuela or somewhere that you can verify some of this stuff. So just make sure you have some long-term food supplies and things like that as well. All right. Next, this is from Messi. I'm buying a family home in South London. I've got a 15 to 20% deposit, which I'm trying to add to. I estimate I should buy in the next 6 to 12 months, depending on the future price drop that I'm expecting. Where should I put my deposit? And then he carries on a load of stuff, more questions, but you broke the rule there, Messi. One question, remember that, keep it simple. Where should I keep my deposit? Firstly, I would say you probably got it in the right place, because if you're looking to buy in the next 6 months, then that's your words there, not mine. Any sort of investment that you put it into is not really going to be an investment. It's going to be a trade. So let me explain what I mean by that. An investment to me is something that I'm buying for the long term. So it's something I'm buying and holding long term. This that you're talking about 6 months, to me that's a trade, and I don't trade. So I know some people ask me lots of questions about trading and buying this and buying that. I don't get into that, and I don't answer those questions because nothing is going to change from my point of view. Trading and investing are two completely different things. I'm not your guy if you're a trader and you like to do short-term trades and you want to, you know, make money really quickly and things like that. That's not really me. So I think it's probably in the right place right now if you're only looking 6 to 12 months out. And as we go through these questions, you'll see as I answer all of these, it's probably going to answer every question that you've got around this area anyway. So next, this is from MS. Is there any benefit in moving cash to bonds to weather the upcoming crash? I'm saving to buy an investment property once the housing market tumbles, and it hurts that inflation is taking big bites out of my cash position with every passing round of stimulus. 0.8% in a high yield savings account, exclamation mark. So firstly, is there any benefit to moving cash to bonds right now? I would say no. I wouldn't. Bonds are too expensive right now. They're not giving you any sort of good return compared to inflation. Now, I've got to be careful with my words there, because I'm seeing a lot of people talking about inflation and hyperinflation. And I have to, this is more of a linguistic thing. It's quite difficult because we're seeing inflation in some things, but we're seeing deflation in others. So actually, it's quite a difficult thing to say whether or not we're seeing inflation right now in the monetary supply. So I'm going to not answer. I'm going to resist saying anything right now because I need a few more weeks worth of data before I can say whether or not we are seeing our currency deflating, but I was inflating. So let me pause on that one for now. But the other thing is silver. Again, get some silver. And remember, there's different ways to invest in metals, gold and silver. And I'll talk about this in a little bit as well. But you obviously have physical. Physical is always your first option. Get it in your hand. Next to physical, you have vaulted metals. I have metals that's vaulted. People always say, oh, Neil, you're a fool having your metals vaulted. They'll steal it. Look, some of these vaults have been going for 150, 200 years in London, right? So I'm happy with the risk with it. Then you have other things. You have allocation. And I can probably drop a link below the video as to who I recommend for allocation. And that's the best way to not pay premiums on metals, because you can just buy in with a company and they already have, loads and loads of gold and silver, and you're buying an allocation of that metal at spot price plus a tiny premium or a commission, let's say. And then when you want to sell it, you've just got a digital account with them. You can sell it. This is not an ETF, an exchange traded fund, which is extremely risky. Metal ETFs, I would never touch. And you might have saw that video I did where I looked through all the legal small print and I found tons and tons of loopholes in it. Thank you so much for that donation right there. Really appreciate that. So that's the thing with allocation. I would recommend allocation. I do some allocation, not a lot, because I have physical metals and I have vaulted metals. But I have, as I said last time, a ridiculous amount of money in silver, like ridiculous. Because for me, I don't want to keep a lot of cash. I do have a stupid amount of cash as well in bank accounts. But the reason why is because I don't want to get into an investment that might go down in value. So there really isn't a lot that you can do right now. And I think one of these next questions will probably come on to that a little bit more. So this is from Matthew. Sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Dolce, I guess. If you had $1 million in cash today, owned your own home outright and had no investments, how would you invest this money today? Stocks are inflated, real estate is inflated, and gold and silver has already jumped up from previous levels, making them less attractive than at the start of the year. Okay, I'd say that's subjective, Matthew. Again, coming back to language here, that's very subjective. Less attractive in relation to what is what I would say. Certainly not currency. Certainly not other assets. I wouldn't say that they are less attractive. You've got to look at gold and silver in comparison to the monetary supply. In comparison to currency. That's really how I would look at it. So if we're creating lots and lots more stimulus, lots more currency, putting it into the monetary supply, I think eventually that's going to have to catch up with the metal supply, with gold and silver. And again, silver's a tiny market. Eventually, I do think it will have to catch up with all this. So I don't see it as less attractive than at the start. Well, no, maybe you've got a small point there. It is a tiny bit less attractive because we've had that spike. But if you did what I said back in March time and you bought, or was it April, when you bought in, your metal would have gone like that. I mean, some people have made hundreds of thousands of dollars and euros based on what I said back then. Again, not financial advice. This is just my personal opinion. Remember, everything I say here is your own risk. So there it is. But I think as I'm answering other questions, I think it will loop back and answer that. Next one, Keith. Retired now, no excessive debt, savings in IRAs, adequate retirement home until crash in brackets. How and where to protect my house and savings? Gold and silver ? Will it all go down together? This is a brilliant question because I've been waiting to discuss this for a little while. Everything has changed. The whole paradigm of the markets, asset markets, have changed. Just crazy. Now, stay with me on this. I'm going to make this as simple as possible. Way back when you had, and let's take three major asset classes. So we've got stock market, and we'll include bond market with it, real estate market or the housing market, And then you have metals, which is a smaller market. But these are the three, let's just say, the main ones. Of course, yes, we have subcategories as well. Art, fine wine, whiskey, blah, 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 la, la, la. Okay, we have all these. But let's just say we're talking about those three main asset classes, those three main categories. What used to happen, if you look at some of the previous recessions, and let's use 2008 as an example. So let me ask you the question so that you can follow along with this. When the housing market started to come down, what happened to the price of silver or gold? Do you remember? It started to go up. When the stock market came down as well, so you had both of these just crashing, what happened to the metals market? If you don't know, make a note on your notepad. I hope you've all got notepad and pen there, by the way, to take notes of all this, because I'm not going to repeat it all. So just make sure you take all these notes down. What happened to the price of metals? Have a look on the charts. Easy to see. They went up. They skyrocketed up. And that's because we have a monetary supply. And I won't say it's finite, because it's not. It's fiat. But let's just say you've got this pool of money. Well, it chases assets. So when you've got these two assets coming down, this one tends to go up. That has been the case generally. But what's happened in this crisis, and again, you'll see this for yourself. Yes, metals have gone up a little bit. They haven't exploded up. But what's also gone up is real estate and the stock market. How does that make any sense at all? Well, if you were to track these, and again, it's not going to be perfect to what I'm saying here. And I don't understand why economists and experts don't ever give this lesson, or you don't ever see this lesson. If you look at the monetary supply in, let's say, the USA, it went up, what, 30%? Yeah, 30% this year. What happened with stocks, housing market, metals? They all went up. Now, isn't that interesting? It's never really done that before. Why is it all of a sudden done that? Well, I would say it's probably due to that theory. And again, this is my theory. It's not proven. I don't have a PhD to show you on this or anything. But I would say that is what has happened right now. So it's probably, and again, these markets will turn around. They will turn around. And when the stock market comes down, the housing market comes down, if these two crash, I'm pretty certain, but again, not 100%, but I'm pretty certain that the metals prices will go up. So just watch this. Keep a note of that to watch that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that donation there. Thank you. Okay, next one. This one is from Trevin Pick. What are your thoughts on the best places to hold cash until things settle down in the US? Online savings, credit union, treasury money fund, T-bills, which is treasury bills, or treasury direct or something else. Yeah, again, I think really, personally, because I like to be liquid, I like to be able to access my funds fast, like very, very quickly. The only things I don't have like liquid right now is my metals. So the silver that's physical. Okay, so the allocation, liquid. I could liquidate that, boom, done. Cash in the bank, use that cash straight away. But the physical metal is, to me, lower risk. So I have a little bit here, like I said, I've got a little bit of metals on hand. I always keep some metals on hand. But then I have some vaulted. Well, not some, a lot vaulted. I have some allocated. They are not liquid at all, except for the allocation. But then I have cash. I have the bank accounts I talked about, where I could transfer that money. I could transfer them into other currencies, things like that. So personally, it depends what your appetite is for risk. If you want to, and again, some of these aren't risky, but if you want to be quite liquid, then I would hold the funds in bank accounts. Ivan Farkaz, what would be a safe way to distribute wealth to different asset categories, and at what percentage? Then he's asked loads of other stuff, but I'm not going to answer all that. And again, Ivan's asking about the stock market crash, how to take advantage. What stocks do I buy? What do I sell? Can we automate? Ivan, this is trading, my friend. I'm not going to be able to help you with this. I love you, but I can't help you with this question because it's too high risk for me. I would feel really bad if I gave you advice, and I could tell you about different stocks and commodities and groups that you could invest into to profit from, but I think it's too risky. I really do, especially right now in this economy where everything is crazy. It's changing so fast. And if you saw the video I posted last night, these economists, experts, they were predicting what, I can't remember the figures now, but it's like a 16.4% drop. No, 15% drop. That was it in house prices. And then it went up 16.4%. They were 31.4% out. That is crazy. We're not talking 1 or 2% out here. We're talking 31.5%. People are getting it wrong. And these are experts. These are people with Nobel Prizes in economics. They can't do it. They can't figure it out. So I would say I'm not going to give you advice on trading, but here's what I would say. There's no one size fits all when it comes to wealth distribution. But I wouldn't say sell your stock portfolio. I wouldn't say, sell your treasury bills or your bonds and things like that. If you're holding stuff like that, it's really up to you. As long as you're happy with the risk. And again, there's a lot of variables here because I don't know when you bought them. I don't know what you paid for them. I don't know what the sort of increase has been in that. I don't know how you're diversified. But here's how I would hold my money. Metals, and again, the different allocations I talked about. And you could have different metals. You could have some gold. You could have some silver. You could hold some platinum if you want. But make sure you've got some metals. Have you got any real estate? There are bargains coming to market. And there's already bargains now in New York City. So this is the sort of place that you could potentially pick up a couple of bargains right now. In New York, you're seeing some good stuff. You're going to see more good bargains coming to market. And the reason there will be bargains as well, even though there's still bidding wars, they're going to die out. They're going to stop as we get into winter here. The other reason you're going to have bargains is because the job losses are going to kick in so heavily. So you could hold that cash that you've got and then just wait, be patient. And this is the hardest thing. People don't have a lot of patience. And I see this day in, day out. You've got to develop this determination, this persistence around being patient. Like I've had this plaque box here, this YouTube plaque for 3.5 weeks, and I was so desperate to open it and have a look at it. I was like, no, I'm going to wait until this live Q&A to open it. But patience is one of the best things that you can actually have in investing, just having that patience. Okay, good. So now I would say that was the first sort of classification of the questions. They were all very similar today. So Nishita, hi Neil, my question is, with approximately 800,000 billion, okay, I'm just going to take your word for that number, invested in ISAs, what do you think is likely to happen to this money after the move to digital currency after the Great Reset? Right, so firstly, there's a big assumption there that the Great Reset will reset the currency. We don't know. We have no idea if that's actually going to happen. We do know that the World Economic Forum is planning this. Why? What? Who? Here's the thing. Who elected these people? I didn't vote for anyone. I didn't vote for these guys. Are these people the most intelligent people on the planet? I have no idea. But even if they are, it doesn't mean that they represent the people, right? And it doesn't mean that it'll always be the right thing done. If you haven't seen that video I made on the Great Reset, you've got to watch that video and watch it all the way through as well. So what do I think is going to happen? Well, ISAs, let's just talk about ISAs and IRAs and pensions and all of that. What's happening right now is really bad. So if you've got a pension, you need to be really, really careful because these pension funds are being depleted, really badly depleted. So what they're doing is what has always happened with pension funds. There's a cycle to this. Now what they're doing is they're taking on risky investments. And these risky investments, a lot of them are going to fail because they need to get this 6, 7, 8, 9%, whatever it is that they need in order to keep it going, to keep this train on the rails, as it were. And they're not going to be able to. There's only so much you can take it to before you just can't do it anymore. It will collapse. And it's the same with the US dollar. Once that debt level gets too much, you won't be, the government, I'm saying this loosely, they won't be able to pay the interest due on all this debt. It will eventually collapse. We just don't know when it will collapse, but it eventually will. So what do I think is going to happen to all the money? Well, I can only theorize what may happen to it. My biggest concern is, why are all these banks involved in the World Economic Forum Great Reset if it's meant to be a green renewable energy initiative? Why are they involved? Where are the green energy companies? So I'm very concerned about it. So what could happen? Well, the worst possible case that could happen with the Great Reset is that they could just decide, because the IMF's involved, this is the biggest problem we've got. The IMF pretty much dictates the world when it comes to money, currency. They dictate everything to the central banks. In fact, they put in place the central banks. You know, there isn't many places left that doesn't have a central bank. And guess where the next wars will be fought? Yeah, those countries. It's all connected if you can just follow all the dots, and you can take the big picture and you can look at it objectively. The problem is most people can't do it. And the only reason I can do it is because I don't have to go to a 9-to-5 job every day where I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, my cup's full. I've got a full cup of energy today. Let me go and work. By the end of the day, you get to 5 o'clock, you're zapped. You get home, you can't read books like this behind, because your mind's gone. You're zapped. Whereas I'm able to sit here and read and see what's going on. I can study, and I can pass that information on to you guys. So what do I think worst case scenario is? They just reset everything. And that would be absolute chaos if they just reset everything. Maybe one world currency, something like that. That would be worst case scenario, because everyone would lose everything. That's why having your basic stuff, some food supplies, having some metals, you can't go wrong with it. And people say, oh, don't be a conspiracy theorist here, Neil. This is not a conspiracy theory. For any of you that have served in the military, this is common sense. Like, one of the first things I was trained in as a soldier in the army was how to survive in the wilderness, as it were, how to pack a Bergen, which is your big rucksack, right? You learn how to survive. These are the things. And they don't say to you, oh, nah, Neil, leave your rifle. Why are you bringing ammunition? Oh, you're probably not going to get attacked. Just leave it. No, of course not. You hope for the best always, but you always prepare for the worst. So that's all I do. In everything I do, I prepare for the worst, but I'm always hoping for the best. Russell Saunders. Hi, Neil. Thanks again for the opportunity to ask our questions. In your opinion, what will be the positives, if any, of the coming crash reset in the long run? So again, I've grouped these together. This is a hard one. Positives of a reset. Well, housing, for a start, would be more affordable. And that means that more young people, or more people who have a lower income, could get into the housing market. And I'm not being like a socialist here and advocating socialism. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a big difference between having houses that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, that you need two incomes of like 60 grand, like 60,000 each to be able to afford, or some ridiculous number. There's a big difference between that and someone that's earning 30,000. They can't even afford a house or an apartment. They have to share. Like, this is one of the reasons that I like one of the companies that I own. It is a house sharing company, and we've got loads and loads of houses within this company. And I do feel proud of that business. Some people say, oh, all these poor people, they're living in your houses, they're earning good money, and they're adult sharing houses. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Actually, it's a good service. We're helping people, because these people, otherwise, they'll be at the mercy of a lot of UK landlords. And most landlords in the UK are really good. They're fantastic people. But some of them are absolute rogues, and they'll just rat-infested places, right? So that's one of the issues here. People can't afford housing. And it's not just in the UK that young people are having to share houses, which is crazy. When I go to America and I tell people about this, they actually laugh. If I'm out for dinner or something, not now obviously, but if I'm out for dinner or out with friends, people, they think I'm joking when I say that 5 or 6 adults share a house in the UK, and this is common. Like every 5 or 6 houses, you might get one of these in a big city. This is really normal, by the way. So I think housing, more affordable housing would be a good option with that. Stocks, probably nothing, because until we get all the manipulation out of the marketplace, nothing's going to change. The banks are the biggest problem. And I'm talking about commercial banks, but they're not even the cause of it. They are like the generals who are being told what to do by the person, the top general is telling, their lower generals what to do. The top general is the IMF. They dictate everything. So the commercial banks, they're giving all this money out, and it's not even loans, by the way. People don't understand this. I don't want to get too advanced, but banks don't even give loans. You think they're transferring you money and giving you loans. They're not. They don't. The banks don't even do that. They're actually buying, how can I put this? They are buying a security from you. So let's say that you buy a house. They're buying your security. They're buying a security, which even though they issue the paper, it's worded as if you issue it to them and they're buying your security. And this is another problem with banks, by the way. They are not contributing to the GDP. Even though it's shown that they're contributing to the GDP, they're not. They don't create any value in society. None at all. There is no value added. A factory creates value. An employee creates value. A bank doesn't create any value. All they do is inflate the monetary supply and the price of assets. And this is another problem that we've got. I think that answers your question, Russell. Sorry, I went off on one there. Okay, next one. MA8. Hi, Neil. What effect will a new digital currency have on our current investments and cash positions? This is a big question now. I'm just going to read through it. Yeah, I think I've really covered this one already. And that is you could lose everything, right? That is the worst case scenario with this situation. You could lose everything, but I don't think that's going to happen, in all honesty. I think that's absolute worst case scenario. So I wouldn't really worry about it too much. But what do I think will happen? I hope they just do a 1-for-1 swap from the old currency that we have to a new currency or something similar to that. I think that's probably the best situation. Okay, next question. This person's name is Berserk. All right. Hi, Neil. Considering the central bank of the Bahamas is planning to launch a national crypto in October, how close do you think are we until a larger country will adopt a CBDC? Also, do I think it'll be backed by gold? Okay, CBDC is a central bank digital currency. So I don't know if this is accurate, by the way. I'm just reading out this question here that the Bahamas is planning a launch in October, i.e. now crypto. So I don't know if that is accurate, but how close do I think a larger country? So let's say the UK or USA or Canada. I think we are extremely close. I think it's going to happen anytime now. Within the next year, I would be surprised if we got to 2 years and they hadn't done it. I think it's probably within the next year they're going to switch to a digital currency. And this is going to be both good and bad at the same time, because we're going to lose a lot of rights as citizens and complete control over our funds as well, and cash. A lot of old people don't have bank accounts. So I don't know what's going to happen. And I saw some crazy stuff about, I'll tell you, I am not going to have this, like chips in the hand and all this sort of nonsense. They will never, by the way, get me to have an implant in my head or in my hand or anything like that. I would rather rot in prison than have these things inserted into me. So that will never happen to me. Just to add that, because someone else asked a question about, you know, the crypto, and that they've seen plans for this sort of implementation. So that will never happen. I'm never going to wave my hand over a device to pay for something. Never. So that's that. They can arrest me. They can do anything. It won't happen. So Sean Simonian. Hi, Neil. Those mortgage-backed securities, so these are known as MBSs that he's talking about, that the US Fed buys from various banks or investors, and they sit on the Fed's balance sheet. My question is, what happens once a lot of underlying mortgages go bad? Doesn't this negatively affect the Fed as well? Otherwise, they do it for a long time and the banks keep lending like they do not care. So, Sean, just a point there, what I just covered, banks don't loan money, just a point on that. They don't loan money, they buy securities there. But the Fed actually don't care. They don't care, because they could buy 100% of all the MBS, all the mortgage-backed securities. They wouldn't care. It doesn't make any difference to them at all, because they're creating the money out of thin air, the currency out of thin air. They're not making this money. They're just like 12. What should we print today? Oh, let's print this. They just type digits into a computer. That's all they do, and they add it to the monetary supply. They're not creating any value or anything. So they can buy as many mortgages as they want, and it doesn't matter. And if they all crashed, it wouldn't make any difference. And worst case scenario, if they held all the mortgages, you would never have a housing crash. It wouldn't happen, because if they hold the mortgages, they can dictate the prices to a certain extent, because not everyone has mortgages. But you see where I'm going with this. It would only push up prices somewhat. So they could hold this stuff forever. It won't make any difference to them. They really don't care. And that could be even a strategy. I don't want to give anyone any ideas here, but you know, central bank could even do that. They could just keep buying all the securities for as long as they possibly want to hold up the housing market. Next one, Betsy Wagner. Hi, Neil. In your opinion, how will continued stimulus money affect the price of gold and silver? And when will stimulus money likely come to an end? No one knows the answer to this question, Betsy. I wish we did know, but there's so much political fighting that we just don't know what's happening with stimulus. I'm just assuming that there won't be any more stimulus. I don't think there's any more coming, to be honest. There may be, and it might be, say, early next year, but I would just assume there isn't any more coming. Now, will they do more QE, i.e. the central banks, and then the government, again, this is so complicated, but will the government then buy those with interest, even though they didn't create the money in the first place, and the government then has to pay interest to the bank on this currency that they then use to buy other stuff? Again, we're getting too complex here for this this call, but this is all what can happen here. What will happen to the price of gold and silver if there is more creation? Well, in theory, it should go up. But remember what I said earlier on in this call, everything's going up, and that doesn't happen. It's all going up at the same time. So I would, if I had to bet, and this would just be, again, my best bet, I would say if they keep putting more monetary if they keep putting more currency into the monetary supply like this, asset prices are going to continue to go up. So even though I'm forecasting stock market, housing market, crash it coming down, if they keep putting more currency in, it's just going to keep going up, because where else is this money going to go to? It has to go into these asset prices. There's nowhere else it can go. Now, here's the other thing. If these things just like collapse, they just toppled over, property, you know, and you know, everything else, like your other asset classes, the stock market and things, metals will definitely shoot up, and they'll just keep going. So that's what I think in general would happen. Okay, next question. Martin McNally. Oh, by the way, what was this? I had a comment here. Oh yeah, please make sure you click the like button for me on the video. I forgot to ask for that. If you haven't already, appreciate that. Martin McNally, hi Neil, what do you think about the 18-year property cycle as spoken about by Akhil Patel, investment research? Okay. I don't know about this report from this research. You got to bear in mind, I read these research studies every single day. There are, dozens of them that come out every single day, so I don't read them all. 18-year property cycle. I've read some other stuff on an 18-year property cycle. I give it weight, but I don't go by it, in all honesty. What I go by is what's happening on the ground today, this week, this month, this year. And I go by those fundamentals that I teach you guys, those videos I made on the stock market crash, housing market crash, how it will happen. I use those metrics as opposed to cycles. I do look at cycles, they have their value, but I prefer immediate things that I see here on the ground. Mikhail Hyatt, how are you going to thrive? Excuse me. How are you going to thrive in the coming economic depression? I see many investors bugging out, buying land and farms in preparation for some kind of chaos. That is surely coming if riots in US and EU are any indication. What are your thoughts on this? All right, Mikhail, I'm going to give you a schooling here in language or linguistics, semantics. Thank you, DJ. Appreciate appreciate that donation. Again, what I always look at is people's language, and it shows in email, whether it's written or spoken or body language or tonality. It's shown in all different ways. So your language here is very fixed. So it's saying in the coming economic depression. We don't know that. We don't know that there is a depression. Some people might think there is a depression and it's certain to happen, but it's not guaranteed that we're going to go into a depression. Okay, so that's the first thing. Next thing is you use the word surely. There's going to be chaos and it's surely going to happen. I would say not necessarily. A lot of this rioting and stuff is absolutely outrageous that's going on. But one thing is that the criminal, like the system that we have in most Western countries is so lax. It's so lax that people can go out and commit crimes. And I think I mentioned this recently, like San Francisco, someone can break into my car, steal a bag, and the police won't come out because they don't consider it like a major crime, right? Some of the rules that we have are so lax that people are like, oh yeah, I'll riot, I'll loot a store, no big deal, and the police won't even bother. So a lot of it that we have is that some of the laws are just too loose right now. But let me just talk about the language again. So everything that we have, and again, I'm going to try not to go too deep in philosophy here, but all the results that we have as a species or as a human being, or, for you personally in our life, is as a direct result really of the language that we use. And most people never get to this stage of understanding this. Yes, you might say it comes as a result of our actions, like the results we have are as a result of our actions. Yeah, but the actions come as a result of the thinking around, like your thoughts, your feelings, and then you take decisions based upon that. So, but all of that really comes from the language that we use. So the language is the most important thing. When I wake up in the morning, like I remember years and years back when I didn't have a positive outlook at all. Everything for me was negative. I grew up in I'd say a fairly rough area, gangs and trouble, and I have the scars on my hands and my body to prove it, you know. And I was a very negative person, and I thought for me, like, fighting and violence was the world, right? And what happens? I go to school, I'm fighting. I go to the army, because where the tough guys go, they go to the army, right? Now what? Right, I'm going to go and join this unit. Now this is a special forces unit. That's where I belong. Right, we go into these patterns. So I'd say what changed everything for me was to loosen my language, right? And if we take the fixings, like these brackets, as it were, off our language, like we take these fixings off of our language, what happens is we open up a whole world of possibility as to what we can do and what we can achieve. So I would say loosen the language a little bit, and then you might see some different outcomes. Because do I see a depression coming? Maybe not. I'm not sure at this stage. Are we going to see chaos? I don't know. Maybe there's going to be chaos in some places. There already is, but I don't think it's going to be everywhere. But how do we avoid this? Well, we can avoid the major cities where a lot of the crime is, where we know that there's a lot of impoverishment. That's what we can avoid as well. All right. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. So I would say if you want to avoid all that, you get away from the big cities where there is a lot of crime. So Anthony Koopmans, Bitcoin. All right, Anthony, I don't really talk about crypto, my friend. Sorry about this. But you're asking really, I'm going to answer it based on an investment point of view. But, you know, this is a lot of technical stuff you're putting in here with all these different things around Bitcoin and crypto. I don't get involved in crypto. Nothing wrong with crypto. It's just, for me, if I have a choice of crypto or I have a choice of physical silver, gold, etc., I'm going to go for the physical, purely because there's 5,000 or more years of evidence behind it. Whereas I don't have that with crypto. So for me, I would rather do the metals that I talked about as security, have some cash, have some different currencies. Again, if you guys want to do crypto, that is completely your choice. I've got nothing against it. And yeah, go for it, basically. But let me just answer your question. I think a diversified portfolio, I wouldn't be all in on Bitcoin or all in on, you know, XRP and some of the others. I would be diversified, have some different coins. I wouldn't put it all in one basket unless you're really certain you've done the research and you're pretty confident that that basket is going to grow. That one crypto is the one. This crypto is the one that's going to the moon. If you're pretty sure on it, then go for it. But otherwise, maybe have it diversified. But don't just have crypto, please. Have some metals as well. Have some cash. Have some other, you know, allocations as well. All right, this is from Professor Wood. All right, here we go. Professor Wood. Hi, Neil. What is your life strategy to survive the effects of climate changing, wars and social troubles, famine? Thanks for your answer. Okay. I'm not going to get into climate change, whether it's man-made or whether it's just the earth warming up through these cycles and whatever. There's arguments on either side. I'm not going to get into it because I'm going to alienate half the audience and then the other half are going to love what I like. I'm not a scientist, right? I don't know the answer, so I don't get involved in that. But let me answer the part about surviving, like wars, social troubles, famine, and things like that. And that is, like, food supplies, first and foremost, should be the most obvious thing. Thanks for that, Will. Let me take a look at that after. Thank you for the donation. Food supplies. You've got to have long life food supplies. Everyone has to have something, even if it's just some canned goods in your pantry or something like that in your house. You've got to have some. Now, if you look back to World War II, for example, what happened? What did people do? Well, they had gardens, right? If you're living in a studio apartment on the 75th floor, you might be in trouble. If anything, like if we're talking worst case scenario, you might be in a little bit of trouble, right? But if you live a little bit more rural, you've got a back garden, what happened to people's backyards in World War II. Their backyard, they turned them into gardens, and they grew food, and they helped with the food supply. So I think if we did ever go back to something like that worst case scenario, it would be good if you had a garden, for example. But yeah, that would be one thing. But in terms of wars and social troubles, I've already mentioned that. Move away from the big cities. The big cities are imploding anyway. There's going to be a lot of problems, especially if things do go downhill. The big cities are going to get worse. What you've seen right now is just scratching the surface. And especially in America, I was supposed to be in America right now. My wife and I, we were supposed to move over because we have a house here in the UK. We have a house in the USA, etc. And just trying to put this diplomatically, actually, my visa, like the visas for the USA for people outside the USA, have all been blocked. So I can't even get my visa for the USA. And in a way, it's been a blessing in disguise, because all of this stuff that I've been seeing has made me been a little bit concerned for what's happening in the USA, for example. And there is a lot of chaos. So I'm a bit concerned about that. So we're putting our plans on hold for a little bit just to see what happens. We want to see what happens with the election as well. We want to see if things sort of normalize, if there's going to be some problems. So yeah. Next question is from Craig Anthony. I'm going to thank you guys for the donations. I will go and have a look in a minute at those questions if I can. But let me just jump on two of these questions and I'll come back to these three. Right. So that one from Will Drake. Do you think governments would enact gold confiscation laws if a currency crisis happens? Possibly will. Yeah. I think there's definitely a risk of that happening. It's happened before. Why would it not happen again? However, let me say this. The USA has the largest gold reserves in the world. So they're probably in a good position to create a new gold-backed currency, because it will have to be backed by something. So do they have enough gold? Possibly they would have enough gold, and they wouldn't confiscate anyway. What they would do is they would come to you and say, give us your gold. It'll be all over the news and the media. Give us your gold, turn it in, and we'll give you currency for it, a fiat currency for your gold. You would get the currency. It will probably switch over to the new currency, whatever. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But the problem is that gold will probably go up 5 times in value after you've sold it. So yes, they could do it. Yeah, I can see your comments here. ECB, things like that. Again, ECB, they're just as bad. They want to take over from the IMF, in my opinion. They want to control things. How is it? Let me ask you this. This is insane. Are you ready? How is it that an organization like the IMF or the ECB can be outside of any constitution? No country can tell them what to do or put any rules or laws on them. Even their own employees have diplomatic immunity. That means if they commit a crime, they can't be prosecuted. It's crazy, like the situation we're in this world now. And I laugh about it. I'm not laughing because this is very serious, but I'm laughing at the absurdity of how we as people have just let all this happen and not said anything about it. It's madness. All right, who is this other question by? North Star. Okay. What do you suggest reading to help the average person understand the economy and investing? Okay, so you've said The Intelligent Investor, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Yeah. Yes, there's some good books there. Start with something quite basic as well. If you are quite new to investing, start with something very simple. The Richest Man in Babylon. I think that's from George Clason. Fantastic little book. It will really help you out. That is it's like a story and a book. I've not read it for 5 or 6 years now, but I've still got it on my bookcase. I'm pretty sure somewhere, or maybe one of my other bookcases. But you definitely want to start with some very simple books. My other favorite book of all time for finance is And I'm going to plug MJ here. So his name's MJ DeMarco, lives in California, not too far from me. MJ DeMarco, he wrote a book called The Millionaire Fast Lane. And you're either going to love the book or it won't be for you. It's not for everyone, but The Millionaire Fast Lane is quite a unique book. It talks about 3 different types of strategy for accumulating money. You have a normal sort of 9-to-5 job. Then you can again, I'm not going to tell you the whole book, but that's a really good book. It helped me to understand money many years ago, and how to actually grow my money and things like that. If you want to learn about investing, like stock market investing, then you've already mentioned Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor. Security analysis is another one. Read Mike Maloney's book on gold and silver. Give Mike Maloney a plug here. Read his book on gold and silver investing. That is enough books right there just to get you started. On my Patreon, by the way, because I know some of you are already members, do a search within the post for, it's called Neil's Recommended Reading List. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of books, and they're all in different categories, from philosophy to personal development, business, entrepreneurship, marketing, sales. Read this book here. There you go. That's my book, Sales Revolution. If you are in, say, marketing or sales or anything where you are required to negotiate, discuss, that is the best book you'll ever read on face-to-face negotiations. There's nothing less than a 5-star on Amazon for that book, and it's been out for years and years now. Read other finance books. Read books on real estate. Like, that's my other book there, Property Cash Flow. Read books like this. It will just open your mind to all sorts of other different strategies on investing. Okay, let's get back in there. So Craig Anthony. Actually, this is a nice segue. I promise you I didn't just plan this what I just said with this question. Can I ask, how have your UK cash flow strategy, so I mentioned this at the start of the video, such as rent to rent, held up during the pandemic, and do you still recommend these strategies or similar for the future, assuming we can get things mostly back to normal again? Right, I'll make this really simple and quick because I don't want it to go over everyone's head. But in terms of my business that does lease options, sourcing investment, houses and property, we've really put that on hold. We've done some business, maybe 10 grand a month in terms of profit or something like that. But we're not really doing big business in that business right now. It's just myself, my business partner. We don't have any other staff. It's just us that do that. When people are coming and buying and they want to sell their properties, we're just doing little bits here and there, right? So we've put that on hold. In terms of all the holiday lets, serviced accommodation, that is paused. We have those properties on long-term contracts with families, with companies, things like that. We're not doing it by the night, like hotel type things or anything like that. These are holiday lodges, by the way, just for reference. So we're not doing anything like that. The rent to rent business, which is what I talked about earlier with these are house shares, that has been very, very interesting and unique. Now, what's happened is a lot of companies that do this have gone bankrupt or they've quit. And I'm surprised by that because I think people probably took the wrong approach. What we did was we said, right, what are our worst performing units? And we figured it all out. We used Pareto's law, 80-20 principle. And we found some of these units that weren't performing very well. And then between us and the landlord, we helped them out. We gave those houses back to the landlords so that they could then rent them out on the open market. Okay, so that's what we did there. We then realized that there's so many houses coming to market, especially in university areas. You know, there's a university not far away from here. They've just announced like thousands of houses that they would usually rent from landlords for the students. They're not taking them on this year because the university's not opening. These are landlords that have spent a fortune on these beautiful, beautiful student houses with en suites and all this sort of thing. And I use the word beautiful loosely because some of you are going, that's my area. I hate these student houses. And I can relate. I can't stand, when I lived in a road like that, I couldn't stand it myself. So you have all these houses, right, that are, let's say, student houses, and they're empty. They just sat empty everywhere. I drive around, I walk around, and I see them throughout the different cities as well. These houses are all available. So a lot of people are actually, especially like rent-to-rent companies, they are taking on these beautiful, stunning, newly refurbished houses very, very cheaply from the landlords with the guaranteed rent contracts. And that's what we've done. We are growing. So where all these other companies are shrinking, we've taken a different approach, and we're actually growing our portfolio. So that is how the businesses are doing. I would tell you, as always, I'm honest about it. If anything was really bad, I'd let you know. None of our companies are doing badly. They're all doing really well. Even with the ones that are on pause, they're not losing money. They're still making money. So yeah, I do recommend still doing them. Caleb, what are your thoughts on uranium mining stocks? Caleb, I don't really have an opinion on uranium mining stocks. I think it depends as well on I don't know which country you're in, but it's going to depend on who is the next president, whether it's, say, Trump or Biden as well. That's going to make a big difference to this. Biden's talking about the Green Deal. Trump isn't talking about a Green Deal. So uranium, and correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but it's mainly used for nuclear power plants, other things as well, but nuclear power plants. So if we do move towards more nuclear power plants, I can only assume uranium stocks would go up. But that is about as far as my knowledge goes. I'm not going to comment anymore because I can't really advise you guys on that. But I would say track that, see who wins, and make a decision on that. And then Min Lee. Hi, Neil. Thank you for your in-depth but easy to understand videos. Would you be interested in making a video on pre-construction? Okay, I'm just going to ask the question for Min Lee here. What do I think is going to happen to pre-construction real estate markets? Okay, so let me just outline what pre-construction is first. So pre-construction is basically where, in the UK, it's called off-plan, and in other places it's called similar things, but is where a company, and they usually have these nice brochures and they go to the shows and they have their stands, invest into this development that we're doing. It's called off-plan or pre-development. I think personally, these are going to slow. Well, it's either going to go to one of two extremes. It's either going to slow down, and what's going to happen, and that will be with, let's say, a housing crash, it will just slow down and it will stop completely, and some of them will go bankrupt. So if you've put money down, deposits, you may lose it if it does go bad, because a lot of them will go bankrupt. Happens every time. If it goes the other way, and there's so many more people, well, there's so many more people on the planet and we need more housing, then I guess it would keep going up. But I wouldn't put my money on that aspect. I would put my money on it not doing well. And by the way, I never, ever pay or invest pre-construction anyway. It's a gamble to me, because why would I pay for something that might not get built in the hopes that I might make a little bit of profit, when I can just go to the open market and I could go around all the agents, I can go around all the offices and say, hey, I'm a cash buyer. I want to buy a good deal. Let me see what you've got. Which of your vendors are absolutely desperate to sell? Who has had their sale fall through 2 or 3 times? Who has just had some sort of emergency and they need to sell desperately? I'm interested in buying. I just want a small discount off the price. Win-win for both of us. Why would I buy pre-construction when I can do something like that? And we do that. So that would be my thoughts on it. And then last one, this came in from one of my mentoring clients. So this is a new client. I won't say their name. They've just started. I have $5,000 of credit card debt. Should I keep making the minimum payments, or should I pay more? Should I use my stimulus check and extra unemployment that I've saved to pay it down? So I would say straight away, you always want to pay off any debt that you've got, especially if it's high interest. It's just interesting. I think because we live in this debt-focused society, People don't ever think about, oh, I'm paying 15% on this loan. Oh, on this credit card. Oh, I've got a 7 or 8% loan here. People just see it as normal, or overdraft to be paying all these fees every month. That's not normal. You need to get these debts paid off. Some people are saying, oh yeah, should I take this 15%? This is actually what someone said to me, by the way. Should I take this 15% loan because there's this development that I can make 18%? That is insanity. No, get your debts paid off, bring your living expenses down, start saving some money, start learning to invest. And this is so simple. This is just very basic stuff. And then grow that pot of money. That's what I'm here to help you, to do. Not a financial advisor, but that's what this channel is all about, is helping you to break free of all this debt and all these problems and the negative thoughts and everything around it. And just to educate yourself on finance and learn properly and to grow into a successful investor. That's really what this is all about. All right, so they are the Patreon questions. I'm going to just see if there's any. Okay, people are talking about the election. All right, I think you guys are chatting with each other probably here. All right, so I think I'm gonna wrap this up anyway. If there isn't any other major questions on this one today. So I just want to say thank you. I hope you've clicked the like button. I really appreciate that. If you have, it just helps the video. Let's see. Here we go. Have we got some questions coming in? Last ones. Oh, you guys, you're late to the party here. You're late to the party. I've already answered a lot of these questions. Oh, bank bail-ins. Good question. I'm going to answer this one and then I'm going to wrap up them. So bank bail-ins, you want to look into this if you don't know what it is. This has happened in other countries. People say, oh no, it will never happen, blah, blah, blah. Bank bail-ins will happen. There's laws now. It's not bailouts anymore. The next ones will not be bailouts, but for the banks, they'll be bail-ins. That means they will go into your account and they will take your money in those accounts to prop up the banks. This is one of the next things that will be coming. Make sure you study bail-ins, make a note of that, research it, and make sure that your bank isn't at high risk. Check the forecasts of the banks. Make sure yours isn't high risk, and then make a decision based on that. All right, guys, thank you so much for being online today. I hope you enjoyed it as always. And if you want your questions answered, Patreon, level 2, get involved in the forum. I'm there every day in the community. And I'll see you guys next month. All right, take care.